be in the war zone. Your thoughts?
I do not believe that media personnel should be embedded with U.S. military personnel. While the First Amendment does say there is a freedom of the press, Article 1, Section 8 of the United States Constitution grants Congress the authority to write the rules and regulations for the land and naval forces. So it is a move by the executive branch to allow for reporters to be embedded, but there is nothing in the Constitution or federal law that requires or facilitates that. So I simply disagree with that action, because these folks don't have guns, and they must be protected by the people that do have guns. And when they don't have guns and they have to be protected, then the mission is diminished, in my opinion. Now, let's go back to this discussion about preemptive war. How many of you have seen, I wasn't alive, but how many have seen the footage of Nikita Khrushchev banging his shoe on the floor, on the desk? And what did he say when he banged it? "We will bury you." Can you remind me of the USSR war that ensued after that? No, there wasn't. Because we went involved in a Cold War that ultimately saw tens of thousands of nuclear warheads aimed at the United States and its allies. And as the result of a commitment to a strong national defense under Ronald Reagan, that once again saw no war with the USSR, because we were able to deter war as the result of the might of our military power and the strength of our resolve. Do you recall Beirut in 1983, when 241 Marines were murdered by terrorists? Do you remember the response to that murder? The response to that murder was Ronald Reagan pulled U.S. Marines and U.S. forces out of Lebanon, because he ultimately concluded that the situation in that part of the world was not worth the loss of one more American life. After that, in 1984, Ronald Reagan won every state of the Union except Minnesota, because he had the courage of his convictions to conclude that the foreign policy of the United States should only expend the blood and treasure of U.S. military personnel and U.S. taxpayers when the vital national security interests of the United States alone are threatened. It's that courage we need once again in Washington, D.C. Thank you.
Dan, we didn't get your specific question, and that is right along the same lines here. Your view on the missile defense that was supposed to go into Poland and Czechoslovakia. That was your neck of the woods for a while. So, is that something that should be instituted, or is our fearless leader pulling us out of that and succumbing?
Well, fearless leader. I mean, which fearless leader are you referring to? You mean our current fearless leader? When the vast majority of the American people are just determinedly opposed to what you're trying to do, and you say, well, I don't care what you think. I don't care what the people think. I don't care what the people of Massachusetts said. Message tried to send. Is that a leader? No. Is that someone who, you know, I see a president who doesn't listen to anything other than his ideologues who say, we've got the votes in Washington to cram anything we want down the American people's throats, and there's nothing they can do about it. The reason the four of us are running, 5 with Don Bates, the reason the 5 of us are running, we want to go to Washington and say, no, you don't have the votes. That's right. You've had the votes. We've seen what you try to do with the votes, but you're not going to have them start post-November. And I hope that the Republicans that are there now voting in unison, every one of them, led by Mike Pence in the House of Representatives and the Republicans in the Senate, every one of them voting no against it will stop anything more from coming down the line and keep them from using these gimmicks and tricks and parliamentary maneuvers and everything else they did to jam health care through against the precedents and procedures of the United States Congress and against the will of the American people. Now let's see, I got all off track there. What's the question? Poland and Czechoslovakia. No, I think that was a mistake. Peace through strength is what Ronald Reagan advocated, and the strength means showing that you are ready to position yourselves as able to respond to whatever threat comes your way. And those missiles in Europe, the Pershings in Germany during the Cold War, And the missile defense system that we are attempting to put into, not offense, but defense system, to protect us, not against Russian missiles coming, although they might, and we would have that capacity to stop them, but protect us against what's happening in the Middle East, and particularly in Iran. What's happening in Iran is unacceptable, and the United States has to stand up and do something about it. It's going to have unimaginable consequences for not only the Middle East, but for the United States. It could shut the Straits of Hormuz. It could drive our gas to $8 a gallon. It could eliminate Israel. Are we going to stand by and watch a Holocaust? We got a nutcase leading Iran who is shipping nuclear material, nuclear technology, nuclear weapons to terrorist groups throughout the Middle East that want to kill us, destroy Israel, and create chaos in the Middle East. And we have a president who announced in the election, this is totally unacceptable. And for a year and a half, he's done nothing about it. And the Secretary of State had to write a secret memo to him saying, this is turning into a disaster. You don't have a plan. You don't have a policy. You've got to take some action and do something about what's happening. They're months away from having nuclear capacity in Iran. And so a president who says, don't worry, we're going to reach out and see if we can sit down at the table and maybe talk to this Ahmadinejad guy, because really, if I get in the same room with him, he's going to say, oh, absolutely, Barack, you are right. I was wrong. We'll just stop everything right now because we want peace in the Middle East just like you want peace in the Middle East. I can get worked up on this one. I can go all day. You're going to ding me again, and I think I better quit.
I gave you a little extra there because the next question was on our role in standing with Israel, and you pretty much summed that up on your part there. So the other three gentlemen, Richard, give us a quick, our role in standing with Israel.
Well, I think our support of Israel is very important on three fronts. You know, first of all, philosophically, politically, they're the only democracy in a very tough region of the world, period. Militarily, you know, they're literally on the front lines of terrorism. They're on the front lines. It's right there. They step out of their home. It's right there. They're on the front lines. I think the most important reason, and this is where I come from, that you know, spiritually, Genesis 12:3 states that God will bless those that bless Israel and will curse those who curse Israel. I'm going to stay on God's side. If that gets you all riled up and worked up, I don't care. I'm going to go down with God. That's the side I'm going to stand on. You know, but in saying that, as an American, I don't want to stand behind Israel. I believe Israel's a sovereign state, and they can take care of their business. But I'm not going to stand behind Israel and wait for Israel to do something about Iran. I'm going to send a very clear message to Iran. I wouldn't have been talking and negotiating with a madman. I agree, Dan. The guy's a madman. And, you know, you don't negotiate with a madman. You know, you send him a very clear message. And again, we should have sent a very clear message instead of bowing down to them and talking to them and talking about old politics. What we should have done is send a very clear message that if he gets wrapped up in this and if he were to build it, we were coming. And we would have leveled things. That's my point on Israel, basically. We can talk at the table later if you like.
Thank you, Marlon.